Feeling under the weather? Don't worry. Today's lesson is like a ray of sunshine cutting through the clouds, and we are diving into the world of weather idioms. Expressions inspired by rain, wind, storms, and sunshine. These phrases don't just brighten your conversations, they add depth and emotion to your language. Think about it. How often does it feel like a storm in a teacup? Or that you're chasing rainbows? These idioms capture the highs and lows of life. From the calm before the storm to moments where everything seems to pour down at once. Just like the weather, these expressions are everywhere, shaping how we describe our emotions, actions, and challenges. So grab your umbrella, put on your rain boots, and let's weather this linguistic storm together. Get ready to explore expressions that will not only expand your vocabulary, but also blow you away. Are you ready to throw caution to the wind and take your English to the next level? Don't take a rain check. Let's get started right now. Under the weather. The literal meaning of this means to be standing underneath weather, like rain or a storm or some bad wind or even sunshine. But the figurative meaning of this means to feel sick or not well. For example, I didn't go to work today because I was feeling under the weather. In TV and pop culture, we often see characters using this to try to make an excuse for getting out of something that they didn't do or forgot to do. Oh, I didn't do that because I was under the weather. The history of this phrase probably comes from sailors who would stay below deck on the boat, either one of two things. When they were sick, they would stay below the deck out of the weather, or if there was a bad storm, they would go below deck to be under the weather, to be away from it. Every cloud has a silver lining. The literal meaning of this means that clouds with sunlight shining through them, their edges create a silver-like appearance. The simple meaning of this means that even bad situations can sometimes have a good thing in them. For example, I lost my job, but every cloud has a silver lining. I found a better one and now make more money. We can see this in motivational movies, motivational books to try to encourage optimism, to try to get people to stop feeling bad when something bad happens. You could always find something positive in every bad experience. The history of this idiom comes from a 1634 poem called Comus by John Milton. And it encourages us to find good things in every situation, whether good or bad. A storm in a teacup. The literal meaning of this is a storm stuck in a small, tiny space like a teacup, which is obviously an exaggeration. It's not true. The simple meaning of this is to make a big deal out of a small problem. So let's say you forgot to do one homework assignment for your class. Don't worry about it. It's just a storm in a teacup. It's not going to bring your grade down that much. We can often see this in family comedies like Modern Family, where a character in the family will make a big issue out of a small problem. The history of this actually comes from England, where tea is a central part of their culture, and this phrase has seemed to have been used since the 1700s. Now, my favorite idiom, on cloud nine. Literal meaning, being on a very high cloud far above the ground, symbolizing a very happy, euphoric state. The simple meaning of this, the figurative meaning of this, means to be very happy or excited. I was on cloud 9 when I passed my English test. In pop culture, we see this in romantic movies. When characters are describing being in love, they will often describe themselves as being on cloud 9. Now, why is this my favorite idiom? It's my favorite idiom because of where it comes from. I think the history of this is so simple and interesting to me. The phrase on cloud 9 originates from an old cloud classifying system where they would look up at the sky, scientists would look up at the sky and go, this style of cloud is cloud 1 and cloud 2 and cloud 3. Well, cloud number 9 is the cumulonimbus cloud. You know, that big, puffy, soft, white cloud that you just want to lay on and relax. That's cloud number 9. So we use that as an idiomatic expression to feel happy, comfortable, relaxed, excited, in a good state of mind. Because who wouldn't want to lay on one of those soft, wonderful clouds? When it rains, it pours. The literal meaning of this is heavy rain all falling at one time and not in small amounts. The figurative meaning of this means that when one bad thing happens, other things seem to happen too that also try to ruin your day. For an example, first I missed my bus, then I lost my phone. When it rains, it pours. We can see this in countless dramas where bad luck seems to pile up for the characters. One specific episode of a TV show called Black Mirror, there's an episode called Nosedive, where every single thing possible goes wrong for the main character throughout her day and week. The history of this is very funny. It comes from an advertisement for Morton Salt Company, which was trying to show that even in hot, humid, rainy weather, that their salt doesn't stick together and it can still pour. So when it rains outside, you can still pour the salt. And that's where this phrase comes from. The calm before the storm. The peaceful and quiet moment right before a storm arrives. That's the literal meaning of this. But the figurative meaning of this is a peaceful time before something chaotic or difficult occurs. So think about, maybe you work at a restaurant and the restaurant is closed and you're quietly setting up the tables and it's nice and peaceful and quiet, but you look outside and there's 100 customers waiting to come in for dinner. You know that in 10 minutes, it's going to be a crazy, chaotic environment. So right now is the calm before the storm. We can often see this in TV shows and suspenseful movies right before something very dramatic happens. The history of this comes from sailors who noticed that the weather was often calm right before a big storm. Chasing rainbows. The literal meaning of this means to run after a rainbow that's in the sky, which is impossible to catch. As you get closer, the rainbow gets further away. So you'll never make it to the end. But at the end of this idiom, I'll tell you why you want to. The simple figurative meaning of this means to try for something unrealistic or impossible, setting your goals too high. For example, he is chasing rainbows if he thinks he's going to finish that project in only 1 hour. We can see this in movies and songs. Chasing rainbows is sometimes used to describe an impossible dream, like in The Wizard of Oz when Dorothy is trying to get home back to Kansas from this silly world of Oz. In history, this is inspired by the idea that you want to get to the end of a rainbow because there is a big pot of gold sitting at the end of the rainbow waiting for you. But in actuality, you can never get to the rainbow because as you get closer, it moves with you or it just disappears entirely. Take a rain check. The literal meaning of this would mean to receive a ticket or a promise to attend a rescheduled event due to rain or bad weather, canceling the original one. Figurative meaning, we mean this to politely decline an offer or suggest doing it at a later time. For example, I'm sorry, Susan, I can't go out to dinner tonight because I'm busy, but I'll take a rain check for next week. Pop culture commonly uses this in romantic comedies when one person is too busy, but definitely still interested and wants to. This idiom comes from baseball games in the 1800s, where the people who would go to watch these games would receive a ticket to go watch the game if it was rained out. If bad weather made them not be able to play the game, they would play a makeup game later, and people who bought an original ticket can still go see the game. Throw caution to the wind. The literal meaning of this means letting caution or something bad be carried away by the wind, abandoning careful planning or safety. The figurative meaning of this means to take a big risk without thinking about the negative consequences that could happen to you. Example, he threw caution to the wind when he quit his job to travel around the world. In pop culture, we often see this in action movies. Characters often throw caution to the wind when making big, bold decisions. The history of this phrase comes from comparing taking a risk to letting the wind blow something valuable away. So if you don't take the risk, you might not get the big reward. But at the same time, you should carefully weigh your options to make sure you're not putting yourself in danger. Come rain or shine. The literal meaning of this means to show up regardless of the weather. So if it's raining, you will go do it. If it's sunny, you will go do it. There's no dependence on the weather. But the simple meaning of this, while it can mean the literal meaning as well, some people do use it in the literal way, the figurative meaning, no matter what happens. I will support you come rain or shine. Something like a mother figure. A mother will always love her son or daughter, right? So I will love you come rain or shine. If you do something good, I will love you. If you do something wrong or bad, it's a mistake, I will still love you. In pop culture, this phrase is often used in motivational ways, like songs or speeches about loyalty. The history of this emphasizes dependability, comparing it to weather patterns that change but don't stop life. Make hay while the sun shines. The literal meaning of this is cutting and drying hay during sunny weather, which is ideal for this farming task. The simple meaning, to take advantage of a good situation before it ends. The weather is great today. Let's make hay while the sun shines and go to the park. We can see this in pop culture, from self-help books to motivational quotes about seizing opportunities, not waiting for something to pass you by. Get up and seize the day. The history of this phrase comes from farming, where hay must be made during sunny weather to dry it properly. Save something for a rainy day. The literal meaning of this would be to keep something, like money, for a time when bad weather might prevent other opportunities. Simple meaning is to save something, usually money, for the future when you might need it. For example, right now you have a good job, you have extra money. Don't spend all that money because in the future you might have a rainy day or some bad times where you might need some extra money to be available. The idea of preparing for bad times in history dates back centuries. So there can't be any specific time when this idiom started being used, but it's been used for a very long time. You can see this in pop culture from financial books or TV shows or movies that encourage people to save. Lightning never strikes in the same place twice. The literal meaning of this is that lightning physically hitting the same specific spot 2 times. This is very unlikely to happen, which brings us to the figurative meaning of this. If something bad happens to you, the same bad thing is very, very unlikely to happen again a second time. So don't worry about failing your test again. Lightning never strikes the same place twice. We're unsure of the history of this since it is scientifically inaccurate. Lightning hits the same places all the time, from skyscrapers to buildings and bridges. It often hits the same place, so I don't know where this one comes from. It's a breeze. The literal meaning of this is something as light and comfortable as a soft wind. The figurative meaning of this means something very easy to do. Oh, learning how to play this game is a breeze. You'll be a professional in no time. We could often see this in feel-good movies or songs to describe a task or experience that are very simple and enjoyable. The history of this, the idea of a breeze being light and effortless and very comfortable, inspired this idiom. Well, that wraps up our whirlwind tour of weather idioms. From feeling under the weather to throwing caution to the wind, these expressions are a great way to bring your English skills to life. Remember, idioms can help you sound more natural and confident when you speak, so don't be afraid to practice them in your daily conversations. Which weather idioms was your favorite? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like and share this video with your friends, as well as subscribe. And if you do use one of these idioms in your conversations during the week, come back and leave the example down below in the comments. I would love to see how you're using these. Have a great day, and I'll see y'all next week.